Good morning, everybody. Mark Finan here in the home weather office on this Wednesday morning. It's now the 20th day of August, 2025, and this is the morning briefing. Yeah, the 20th day. Is it just me, or is this month flying by? As I look out the window from the home weather office, a beautiful morning. It's a warm morning, but not really warm, just warmer than it has been recently. Blue sky and nothing's really moving out there. The winds are light. Not much in the way of an onshore breeze. And we are going to see a warmer day today. Temperatures getting into the 90s, and then we are still looking at some hotter days ahead, especially as we get into the weekend, Friday and the weekend, with temperatures at or above 100 degrees. I'll talk more about that. Still talk about some of the uncertainty about that, and that has to do with cloud cover, and I'll show you the reason that it's uncertain. And I'm also going to talk a little bit more about microclimates in the foothills. So let's start with the satellite this morning. Beautiful sky once again. Just a hint of marine layer here along the coast. Really not much. There is some here on the north coast, a little bit in the Bay Area, and very little in Southern California. And as we've been talking about recently, just terrific air quality as we don't have any major fires burning at this time. This is really nice. Now, if I come over here, you'll notice that through Arizona and Nevada and into Utah, right along the state line between Nevada and Utah, you will see that there is this fair amount of monsoon moisture coming up our way. All right, that's the thing that we're going to have to keep an eye on over the next couple of days, because eventually that's going to start tracking a little farther to the west, and we're going to see some of that into California. All right, more on that here in just a minute. Just kind of keep this in mind. What I want to talk about this morning is a little bit about microclimates. Now, I talked yesterday about the difference between the valley and the foothills in terms of the valley starts off cooler but ends up warmer. And then in the foothills, we see warmer mornings but cooler afternoons. And a couple of folks in the comment section said, well, yes, but the airports are up on high terrain. And that's a really good point. And for that, I'm just going to focus on Placerville. This is Placerville here. There's the downtown area, and that's Highway 50 right there. I'm just picking out Placerville, but I could do this for Sonora, I could do this for Grass Valley, Nevada City, and Auburn, or Jackson, and all sorts of places up and down the foothills. All right, so these are the temperatures as I'm recording this before 8 o'clock in the morning. So these are the 7 a.m. temperatures. So here's Placerville Airport right here. And now it's up on a ridgetop, and the temperature here is 70 degrees. You'll notice that just a couple of miles away, maybe not even a couple of miles away, this site is saying it's 56 degrees. You go farther to the east up on Carson Road. This one says it's 68. Let's go the other way. This is Main Street, Placerville, Broadway right here. And then you go up on the ridgetop, or near the ridge, and this one says it's 61. And this one says it's 56. And then you come all the way down here, almost down toward Diamond Springs, and it's 71. So a wide variety of temperatures here. The ridge tops, especially with a light easterly wind first thing in the morning, will be warmer. And of course, the airport is on a ridge. It is on a flat plateau as opposed to being down in the valley. And first thing in the morning, the valley, the lower areas, are going to be cooler than the ridge tops. The ridge tops will stay above the localized inversion. And for any of you that, especially if you ride a motorcycle, and where you really notice the temperature change as you change elevation in the early morning or late night hours, you'll notice that as you go up and down the foothills, you go down into the valleys, the temperature will get cooler. You get up onto the ridge tops, and the temperature goes up. So the issue that we always had when I was doing TV, and I'm sure the TV people today still do, is, okay, so this is a snapshot of Placerville this morning. And anybody that lives here or lives here or lives here would say they live in Placerville. And if you're at the television station and you're trying to do a forecast for Placerville, what's your overnight low? Are you forecasting 56? Or are you forecasting 70? So when we would do our forecast for the foothills, we would always have to do it for the airport, because that's where it verifies, if you will. But If you lived in another area around Placerville, and again, this applies to any other location, as I mentioned, up and down the foothills, your temperature is going to be very different from one place to another just within a few miles. You don't have that down on the valley floor. Around Sacramento, the difference between Executive Airport, International Airport, McClellan, Mather, they'll all be within a couple of degrees. You won't have this where we have a 14-degree difference within just a mile or so. So that's an interesting thing about the way the foothills work with the temperature inversions. Everything kind of levels off a little bit more in the afternoon, but certainly the overnight lows are very, very tricky to forecast exactly. And I don't remember too many folks in the foothills, yelling at us when we get the forecast wrong for the foothills, saying, you said it was 70 and it was only 55 at my house. We didn't get too much of that. I think a lot of the folks in the foothills understand. We do have a nice little trough in the area that's beginning to lift out. The high is beginning to move back in as we go through the next couple of days here. So this is the 6Z run of the GFS, and you notice that low is now pushed farther to the north. The high, the classic four corners high, is nudging to the west. And as we get into the weekend especially, look at the flow around the high. So you have the westerly flow here, but then it turns from the east, comes around this way, and then fuels the monsoon. So instead, right now, the monsoon is going, as I showed you on the satellite, up this way. By the time we get to, what day is this? This is Friday. We start seeing the monsoon coming up into California, perhaps, if there's some moisture here. And even more so as we get into Saturday and Sunday. Just classic flow coming up from the south. Under a ridge, which would give temperatures a boost up to around 100 degrees. Weak troughing as we get into next week that may be good enough to keep our temperatures into the mid to upper 90s and end that monsoon flow, more or less. And then as we get out into Fantasyland, it does appear as though we could see more troughing as we get into early September. This is the last day of August right here. And then into the first couple of days of September, that is showing another deep trough. We'll see how that plays out. All right, so now let's take a look at how this looks on two different models. This is the NAM. So I'm showing you precipitable water here. Dry today. Keep an eye on this area of moisture down here. And here it is beginning to creep to the north. This is Saturday morning. And this model only goes out to Saturday afternoon. But either way, we have more precipitable water, up over an inch here, and in Southern California, 1.33. All right, does that translate into cloud cover? Well, the NAM says maybe not so much. This is today. This is Friday, showing some high, thin clouds. Saturday, really not much cloud cover, except in the Sierra. And in the Sierra, that's where we actually are seeing the chance of showers and thunderstorms. I'll go through that again. Nothing today. This model's not showing much on Friday. This is Friday afternoon, not really showing much. And then to Saturday, also not showing a ton, but there is a little bit there. All right, that's the NAM. Let's go to the GFS. We'll go through the same thing. We'll show you the precipitable water. Dry today. That PW, precipitable water, begins to come back up again. This is Saturday, kind of looks similar. And then this model goes out into the day Sunday and Monday, keeping that precipitable water around. And if I go to the cloud cover, you'll see that this model shows a lot more cloud cover. This is actually tomorrow. This is Friday, Saturday, showing a lot of cloud cover, and into Sunday, a little bit less. So the reason that there's uncertainty about just how warm it may get, if you have more cloud cover, obviously it's going to stay a little bit cooler, a little more shade. There's difference right now in the models, and the GFS is also a little bit more aggressive in terms of afternoon rain. Not so much on Friday. Saturday, this looks a little bit more extensive than the NAM is showing right now. Certainly an interest for those along 395 as well as into the Tahoe Basin. That is Saturday. And then on Sunday, this would also include areas like Portola and into Lassen County, around Lassen National Park, and even into Modoc County, as well as down toward Bodie on 395. So that's Sunday. So if your weekend plans include being in the Sierra and Eastern Sierra, keep your eye on the sky for afternoon thunderstorms, and that would also include Monday. Yeah, Monday looks like it's even more extensive here on the GFS. So there is, model discrepancy here. And so making a forecast, the NAM, to me, I think is underdone, and the GFS may be a little overdone. So usually, I think it's going to come in somewhere in between. Either way, I think that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're likely going to see valley temperatures in that 100, 102, maybe 103 range, something like that. And we will see some cooling as that trough begins to come back in as we go into Monday and Tuesday, but we're not going to see cooling likely down into the 80s like we've seen recently. And then for the afternoon thunderstorms, I think in the next, today's Wednesday, I think by the time we get into tomorrow, the NAM will likely start to come around to showing better afternoon convection in the Sierra than it is right now. And if you are planning on being in the Sierra this weekend, or if you live in the Sierra, we are going to have those afternoon thunderstorms likely on Saturday, Sunday, and into the day Monday, and maybe even beyond that. So we'll keep an eye on that and see how the models evolve here in the next 24 hours or so. In the meantime, today, a warm but not overly hot day, and a little bit warmer on Thursday. And then, like I said, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, likely over 100 degrees in the valley with overnight lows in the mid-60s. Nothing too oppressive. We still don't see 105, 108, 110s as we can do still at this time of year, but it is going to get a little bit hotter once again. That's everything I've got for you on this Wednesday morning. Make it a great day. I'll talk with you later.